Okay, yeah, no, I'm an audio guy, so I know exactly what this is, a Zoom mic and stereo.
Yes.
And actually, if I held it here, this mic could be pointing at me, and that mic could be
And it'll
pointing at
work.
you.
Oh, wow.
Well, if I hold it here, here's what, are you recording in stereo? Yeah,
Yes.
you're recording in stereo. So what'll happen is when you go to mix this,
Uh-huh.
what's going to happen is what channel is this? One channel is going to be panned left, mostly. I mean, it's picking up me on this mic, and it's picking up me on this mic.
And
It's
it's bringing
picking me
the
up
left
better
right.
on that one. You might be able to leave it as is, because for your audience, it'll feel like they're in the room with two people talking left and right.
Nice.
So it might be, but it might be too far panned. So when you go to mix, you might have to mix it mono or pan it. It depends. You just listen to it. If I'm too far left, you're gonna want to bring that in a little bit. If you're too far right, you're gonna want to bring it closer to the center
Got
channel.
it. Did you learn all this from Dragon Ball?
No, I was an
animation?
ADR director in New York
Oh,
for anime, and I insisted on. And I also have a background in music, and I studied musical acoustics in college, and I had an
Okay.
affinity for this. But I never studied engineering until I worked for Michael Sinter Nicholas, and then I bought my own gear at home, and I read articles and study and play with sound all the time. And while I'm not formally trained, I can usually hold my own with average engineers, not exceptional engineers. Maybe they really know their stuff, but I can. If you handed me a show and said mix this, it would be decent. It would,
Nice.
I could do it. Yeah.
I didn't expect to get this information from
Oh
you.
yeah,
today.
I can get really detailed. We can talk about second and third order harmonic distortion,
I wouldn't know
or
what any of that
dithering,
is.
or compression, or equalization, or
Yeah.
whatever, reverb tails.
You got it.
I mean, whatever you want. Anyway, let's do it.
Okay. Just to give you like heads up, I'm from Geeks of Color. That's my website.
So I had 3 black geeks here earlier,
Gotcha.
geeks of color. Yet nobody has a racial bent on their spin. So do you?
No, we
So-
don't.
okay.
It's all across the board. That being said, I wanted to tie that in a little bit of
Yeah.
Dragon Ball Z because of how much of a international phenomenon
Yeah.
it is, and just how long it's been. The course has been running. Like it
Sure.
captures the hearts of us kids, and continues for years.
Yeah.
The first question I had leads to a little bit personal experience for me. I had very deeply religious grandparents.
Yeah. What kind of religion?
Christianity.
Oh, Christianity. Okay. My dad's a Lutheran minister.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I get it.
Yeah. And the first thing they saw out of Dragon Ball Z was violence,
Right.
which granted is a show about fighting.
Sure.
But watching Dragon Ball Z as a kid, I never felt any sort of animosity or maliciousness. In fact, I think it has a certain charm that I liked as a kid. So my question to you is, what would you like for kids to take away from Dragon Ball Z? Because they end up watching it regardless.
Well, I don't want to tell kids what to take away from
Yeah.
Dragon Ball Z, but at the same time, I mean, there are obvious themes such as never giving up, getting stronger, fight to the death,
Perseverance,
et cetera,
Yeah.
which are obvious. I'm trying to think of maybe some of the deeper themes they might not pick up on. I really think. Before I got on Dragon Ball, if you want to know about me personally, I have always been, for a number of reasons, a big believer in personal growth. I think it's because I was aware, that, and nobody has perfect parents.
Yeah.
And every parent makes mistakes, but, where my parents were lacking and due to childhood trauma, I realized that I was not, as a human being, reaching my full potential. I would see guys that had similar looks to me and similar upbringing, but had more than me. I was like,
Gotcha.
okay, well, I can't get a girlfriend because I don't know how to interact with ladies because I had crappy parents showing me, not that my parents are crappy, but they did crappy things sometimes, and every parent does to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would learn things that would make it to where I was socially awkward. I didn't know how to relate. I couldn't get a date, or I couldn't get the friends that the guy had, or be liked, run for class president or whatever, because I could see that, yet I was given gifts that were similar to the person who had that, yet I didn't have it. So I started attributing it to lack of personal growth. And so if there's one theme I live by, and I don't remember who said this, but a famous person once said, a life unexamined is not a life worth living. And so I'm a big believer in self-examination and self-growth. And Dragon Ball is all about growth.
Definitely.
And I just watched a jet ski almost collide with
With that boat right there, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
And what's
terrifying.
funny, if some fan is wise enough, there's been something that's happened out there in almost every
They'll be like,
interview.
"That was me."
and I catch it. And so if they cut it, Sean getting distracted by things in interviews, then they cut it all together. It could be humorous. So I think persevering is definitely important.
Got you.
But personal growth. It's funny. I'm a little bit elitist about it actually, because I've discovered through my own therapy sessions that I tend to be very judgmental of people when I see them not trying to grow or work on themselves.
Interesting.
So they're just fine being a douche. I don't like them. If they're a douche and trying,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm really forgiving. I'm like,
Gotcha.
okay, you're trying.
Got ya.
You're making mistakes, but I'm kind of a jerk about it. I'm like, I don't want anything to do with anybody who's just okay being with their head in the sand,
Yeah.
being ignorant, and not wanting to try to grow regardless of their circumstances.
Yeah, it's different.
And for nowadays with kids, especially poor kids or people who are marginalized, I'm not saying there's no excuse. There's less excuses in terms of education because there is a wealth of good information on the internet and educational YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And so people who are not privileged enough, luckily they have an advantage. So if you are going, well, I can't better myself because I don't go to the best schools or I don't have money. Well, that's true, and I get your plight.
Yeah.
But now with the internet, if you got an internet connection, man, you can. I met this really amazing guitarist who is an up-and-coming guitarist, and he was performing his ass off. He could be the next Stevie Ray Vaughan. This guy is amazing. He's in Fort Worth, Texas. His name is Michael Lee. He's a really good guitar player. And I was talking to him about guitar, and I go, how'd you learn how to do this? He goes, I just watched YouTube videos and I practiced a lot.
And you know what? Most of my friends that are guitarists do learn off YouTube.
Yeah. My point is that, if you want to...
if you want to be somewhere, you will get there.
You will get there if you want it. But if you're
try it.
okay being, having the thumb of society on you, and I shouldn't be elitist that way, but I realize this about myself, that I get very judgmental of people when they're just okay being...
Your position is you should acknowledge it, but you should still work past it.
Yeah, my position is like, I can't trust a person who, maybe is a liar and knows it and doesn't want to not be a liar, or I'm just making stuff up. But I'm just personal growth is, because people who know me personally know that I'm not a perfect person, and I made some major mistakes in my life, and I'm not nice to people because I care a lot, and I tend to be very passionate and yell and be upset about things. And then I always apologize, and I feel like a jerk, and so I'm like, so in terms of my own personal growth and my own flaws, the Dragon Ball has allowed me to the money and the time and the popularity even to look at myself and grow as a person. In fact, I've mentioned in several interviews I'd love to write a book called Growing Up Goku.
That's interesting.
Because Goku grew me up.
Yeah, and he is a figure of growth. And that actually kind of leads to my next question.
Well, wait, ironically enough, he changes very little in Dragon Ball.
That's what my question was.
Okay, cool.
Exactly.
Which I believe comes from the Monkey King and the Great Journey West, and he is the embodiment of the beginner's mind, the child, the Zen Buddhist ideology.
The curious mind always trying to learn.
Always trying to learn, but beginner's mind. Because that's the reason the beginner's mind can be so powerful, and they talk about this in Zen Buddhism, like when you go try archery for the first time or something, because you're a beginner and don't know, you haven't learned how to screw up, you do it perfectly the first time. Yeah. I think that's kind of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, what I wanted to
sorry.
No worries. What I was going to say was that Goku, we kind of see him as a symbol of change because of all these transformations that he goes through.
Vegeta's a symbol for change.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're kind of polar opposites in that way. And
Piccolo's a symbol for change.
Static. Everybody else is changing around him. Piccolo's a good guy now. Even Frieza and Goku are
I'm glad you noticed that, because
friends.
and this isn't Funimation's fault, but they get new writers that maybe they're good writers who don't know the character as well as I do, because I've been playing for 20 years, and they'll write a line in there that to me is very Vegeta-like, very Saiyan Pride Warrior stuff. And that happened to me a couple times. I'm in the booth going, nah, it's not Goku.
And you know what? I heard Chris say in an interview recently that that's Vegeta rubbing off on Goku. He's more fierce now in Super.
Yeah, I think that Chris, one thing I love about Chris, and he'll probably get mad at me for saying this, is Chris, I love Chris. He's my dear friend. He's a master of spin. If it's rubbing off in the Japanese, then yes, I would do that in terms of how it's written. Okay. Yes, I would agree with that. But if he's just saying that the way, no, I don't agree with. I would argue. Chris and I have argued in the booth. I would tell him, no, that's bullshit.
I would love to see that.
It's been heated before, seriously heated.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's bullshit. If he said that to me in the book, let's just go. I go, where does it show that in the canon? Where does it show in the Japanese script? You show me in the Japanese script, then that's fine. But if you, and sometimes now, ironically, in everyone's defense here, there have been times where I'm like, I don't think that's a Goku line. I'm not sure. Let's check the Japanese script. Sure enough, that's the way they wrote it.
It's exactly
right. It's the way they wrote it. Now, there's always nebulousness with the translation potentially, but our translators at Funimation are excellent. So it's rare that they make any kind of a mistake like that. So back in the day, it was all the time, but a long time ago. But nowadays, Funimation's quality just keeps going up. Definitely. So I'm really pleased with what they're doing with the show. But yeah, Vegeta rubbing off on Goku.
Maybe not. Well, my next question then.
I don't know what context he said that in, because I do remember we saying Goku could stand to be a little bit like Vegeta, and Vegeta could stand to be a little like Goku, which is funny about me and Chris's relationship. Chris and I'll be frank about this, and he wouldn't mind it. I love Chris like a brother. And what's really weird is we have very different personalities, but oftentimes think of the same thing at the same time.
Nice.
And we have very different backgrounds and very different attitudes and approaches to life and very different things we value. Although we have this weird convergence of art where we're really similar in terms of decisions and humor. And like, I'll make a joke. And it's like, I was thinking the same thing. It's like, oh my God, I was thinking the same thing.
That's good.
And then we're like, fist bumping bros, right?
No, yeah.
But then there's other times where I'm like, dude, you're just wrong, And he's like, no, I don't see a problem. What's the problem? I'm like, we're arguing, so, but in his defense, we did say Goku, I was talking about me and Chris' relationship. I have, in my friendship with Chris of 20 years, I have said to him, there's a lot I admire about him and that I would like to be like. And I don't ever feel like he likes, I feel like Chris is one of those guys that, and this is one thing as I love about him, he loves himself a lot. And I don't mean that in a narcissistic way. He's just really, he doesn't have regrets. He's confident and, he's a good guy. And he doesn't ever feel insecurity about like he's conscientious, like he's worried about saying the wrong thing at a dinner party for sure. He's very conscientious, but he doesn't. I always have joked with him. I said you could stand to be a little bit more like me, and I could definitely stand to be a little bit more like you. Like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like I don't know if I've rubbed off on him at all. He's never admitted that to me. He's definitely rubbed off on me, and he could have a point. But I'm saying while I don't think an original cast is necessarily the gold standard for how actors should play characters in other languages, I do think the script and the story is the gold standard, with the exception of a couple of things. Humor in Japan doesn't always translate to American audiences.
It's a different delivery.
It's a different delivery. It's a different style. There's been a couple times when I was directing anime that I didn't even get the joke because it's so colloquial in Japan that I had to make up a joke to make it work. And fans get really mad about that. I'm like, well, you'll get it as an anime fan, but we're not just making this for you.
Yeah.
And since you're an anime fan, watch the Japanese version. You like anime. You probably like the Japanese version. Yeah. We're making this to make it as canon as possible and as accurate a script as possible, but we're going to spice it up here and there. My rule for editing lines is it doesn't violate canon, doesn't violate the character. You can throw a joke in. If it doesn't violate the power levels, it doesn't violate the story, you can throw a joke in. But you start violating character of the story, then I start pushing back, especially when it comes to lines that are written that seem not Goku-like.
Okay.
So my goal, if I had my fantasies, I would love to call Akira Toriyama and say, okay, dude, let's talk. Let's talk this out, and really know.
Have you watched all of Super, the Japanese?
No, not yet.
No. Okay. There's a line at the end
that you can tell me.
Okay.
It's okay.
Goku says something along the lines of, "I'm not a protector of Earth," or to. I can't even think of his name right now because I'm
That's
so
okay.
Jiren.
Jiren,
the final fight. And he says something along the lines of that he just wanted a good fight, basically.
Okay, so this goes to what I've been going for this whole time, and this is what really pissed me off in the early days. And then it proves that what Akira Toriyama supposedly said is true, which I agree with. And when I first started doing Dragon Ball, Funimation did not understand, and understandably so, no companies were really good at understanding how to market anime and I didn't, this is my own personal bent, but because I didn't like being condescended to by adults when I was a kid, was that, you see some producer who doesn't, and I'm not talking about Funimation right now, just is like, well, kids aren't going to, know what that, well, how do you know? Just because your stupid kid doesn't get it?
Yeah.
Maybe that smart kid will get it.
Yeah.
So, and I get that money's involved, so everybody gets real nervous and safe when money's involved because they were spending a lot of money to make it, right? So they want to make their money back. So in early days, they were following what I call the Pokemon formula, which is let's make this so American they can hardly tell it's Japanese.
Like Dragon Ball Evolution.
No, that's not why that happened.
Okay.
That is not the reason why that happened. That happened to do with the director switch or producer switch who didn't know the show, and the guy who was supposed to be on it did know and was going to be amazing, and then ended up not being amazing due to some contract thing or something.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know all the details, so I can't really speak on it. But other members of the cast do who may or may not speak on it.
But it was too American. But go on.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I don't even think that was the bent. And so the Pokemon formula, which was smart. It worked at the time.
Pokemon was huge.
Pokemon was huge. It was the gateway drug for anime. They made it very American, very stylized. So Funimation's, I don't know that they were following that lead, but I'm guessing that they were. And so they tried to write Goku as a not Judeo-Christian, but like a, not even a Jesus-like character. I'm thinking of Judeo-Christianity. I'm thinking altruistic word is what I'm thinking of Jesus and altruism. Altruistic hero. That's why the I am the hope of the universe speech made me so uncomfortable, because I didn't know what it said in Japanese, and it seemed very out of character for some creature to say, I'm the hope of the universe, I am the dark,
Yeah.
very narcissistic. Now, if it's that way in Japanese, I don't know if it is. Maybe you've seen it.
Yeah.
Then it's
watched
fine.
both throughout my life.
What's that?
I've watched both. I'm always watching.
What's he saying there?
By subtitles. I mean, like, I think he still does say, I am the hope of the universe,
Okay.
but I do think you're right in terms of delivery.
Yeah.
The Japanese delivery kind of has a more positive and less narcissistic kind of connotation.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's in my acting or the writing, because I really wanted to do that justice, and it's really, it's uncomfortable for me to do that unless it was in Japanese. Then I would just be the actor and do it. So by the time we did Kai, Akira Toriyama was like, "Hey, we're gonna do Kai just like the manga," which led up to because they were rebooting the whole series essentially by releasing Kai, which is let's make it like the manga, which I loved. Fun fact: when I was working on Dragon Ball, I thought it was cool, thought it was popular, I liked it. I couldn't understand why it was so popular because they'd watered it down a little bit. Once we got to Kai, and I understood the Goku Vegeta relationship better, then I went, oh. And then once you read the manga, well, because I don't trust translations. So right. So you said at the end of the translation, he says that to Jiren. My first thought is, who translated that?
Gotcha.
And then my second thought is, will our translator translate it differently?
Yeah.
Crunchyroll are fine translators, but I wonder if I send it to 3 other translators,
and they get a total
different meaning. So the reason I don't read manga is I don't trust translators. I don't trust them. When I was learning Irish Gaelic, I'm so picky about language translation. I wanted to know it exactly, literally, and then I'll decide what it means to me
as a creator,
as a person. Whereas a lot of times translators will try to fill in that blank for you, and I don't think all translators, with the exception of this one guy I met who's really good, Mikey McNamara, was a really good translator, where you're getting not just the exact literal translation, but also the emotional feel of it. For example, I'll use Gaelic as an example because I speak Gaelic, right? Here's a Gaelic phrase. Give me 1 second. They can wait. Níl chanchan mar hen chanfain means there's no hearth fire like your own hearth fire, literally translated. But the way they told me it was translated was no place like home. Big difference. Now, someone writing in a manga might go, it's the same thing, because they're not artistic and aren't sensitive to language, or they're just good translators.
Yeah.
So when I see the reason I watch the sub is Goku doesn't have a crystal ball into the future. So if I'm playing Goku, I don't want to know what happens with Jiren. The original Japanese cast didn't know what was going to happen. They're recording it episodically, so they don't know. So when people give me a hard time, it's going to ruin it for me. Not as a fan, but I don't want to have it affect my performance.
From a performance standpoint, I assumed you didn't.
I don't look ahead.
But from a fan, I'd be like too eager. Like, no, I gotta watch.
That's why I don't think it's. Again, I've said in other areas, I don't think it's good to be a fan and have the role. And I think people don't understand. They want me to join their fandom. I'm not a fan.
Okay.
But I am a fan.
Yeah.
Meaning,
no, I get it.
I have to suspend that a lot. I think I will probably be a bigger fan of Dragon Ball when I'm done being Goku. Now I take my love of energy, my love of fan energy, and I go, I'm a fan. And I go, got to put that aside. And I have to follow the rules of the character. So I was like, wouldn't it be great if he said, and every once in a while I get giddy and I want to throw in a line that would be a fan, and then I have to shoot it down because I'm like, wait, now my fanboy's talking, right?
Yeah.
You got to suspend your fanboy when you're being the character. So when people come at me with various things that some of which are illegal, and I'm like, and I don't get on board, it's not because I'm a jerk. It's like, you guys don't understand. I live this character every day for 20 years.
Yeah.
I consider the soul of this character living. It's a psycho-spiritual thing for me. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
I can't jump on board and toss it around and make fun of it like you guys do, which I have from time to time, but it usually makes me uncomfortable, right? So when it comes to the reason I don't watch the translations is because even if it's an accurate translation, I get married to that in my head, and it starts becoming part of my character. And then when I go to record, I see a line that's not like the translation. I get insecure. I'm like, wait, that's not like what I remember. Can we check that again? And I get nervous. Like, I can't have multiple translations going on in my head.
And you know what? There'll be times where I'll be reading a manga, and then the anime comes out,
and it's different, right?
It's different, and
I'm
waiting,
translators.
I'm waiting for that one line that I was like, oh, it's my favorite
line.
Look at Nathan. Look, he's about to say it.
It drives me nuts, man.
And it's different. Yeah.
So that's the reason I don't. And I'll probably read all the manga after I'm done, and then I'll be thinking the whole time, I wonder if he really said that. I wonder if he really said that. Because translators will take artistic license, and while they may be good translators, I don't think all translators are good with artistic license, because you have to have a real poetic and artistic sense to do that. And sometimes translators have that gift, and sometimes they don't, because translating can be a very technical thing. I've had to translate Gaelic and Irish back and forth, not because I was born in Ireland, but I taught myself Gaelic when my Irish grandfather died. So, that's one example. Like hello in Gaelic is diaglet, which means God to you. Big difference than just hello. Big difference. Yeah. Goodbye is slán Awaila, which means safe home. Oh. So, or that slán gafol. Slán means safe, so they're saying when you go home, be safe. That's very different than goodbye.
Yeah.
So when they were I got real mad when I found the literal translation. So if I were gonna do Goku, I'd be like, mastering Japanese, learn it exactly right. You know what I'm saying? So that's my general artistic attitude. but I have to deal with all the other forces that control me as Goku, such as
Gotcha.
the director, translation, et cetera, et cetera.
Gotcha.
So there's that.
Okay.
I hope that was a good answer.
Oh, that was a perfect answer. I could hear you ramble on for
Yeah.
hours and hours.
I tend to do that.
No.
We got to wrap though. Do you have
Yeah.
one more quick question? Are we wrapping up? I know I
well,
talked
you kind
a
of
lot.
answered it.
Okay. Was that your last question?
My last question was going to be Akira Toriyama's. He has a prodigy right now to help him with the manga. He's going to pass it on to a new generation.
Well, he is. I didn't know that. I did not know that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So you might have a job forever, or would you pass up the mantle? Because you just said you have a lot of love for the character.
I will never pass up the mantle
Never.
unless
They rip it from you.
Unless they rip it from me.
Okay.
Masako Nozawa's, she's a bit older, but Japanese women tend to live forever. So she's 86 now. She'll probably live to 120. So she could probably do it, 30 more years. No, I don't. I wish her a long, happy
Yeah.
life.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
my fear is if we ever lost a main cast member such as Masako, it's done. I don't think Japan would ever replace her.
Yeah.
And I don't think they should.
Yeah, that'd be the respect.
I don't think they'd replace me if I died. They would. No, they would. They'd replace me if
I
I
hope
died.
not.
But if Masako Nozawa or Ryo Horikawa died, they would never replace them. They're legends in Japan. I don't think they should.
Yeah.
So I'll have a job for years to come as long as Masako Nozawa's alive and as long as
Okay.
they want to do it. And if they come calling and it's sanctioned by Toei and Shueisha, and Funimation's doing it, whatever, I'll be Goku as long as my voice holds out. I'll be 50 this year, and Moscow's 86, so I got to compete with an 86.
You got some time.
I got some time.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Right, perfect.
So I'm hoping it'll
Last a while.
last a while for me.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Well, I think that's a perfect way to
Thank
end
you.
it. Goku for 30 more years.
All right, I
Thank
hope
you.
so.
I
I scream. I'm like 80.
appreciate Let's hope you can still do it, or maybe just get a scream guy.
I've been thinking in recent years, like I'm in okay shape, but I'm thinking I better start working out to age into being able to play Goku because I'm losing my youth a bit, and so I'm like, okay, I'm not quite as spry as I used to. I maybe need to work out and really actually live the life of Goku instead of being a
It's a little hard.
fat ass on the couch. Thank you very much,
I
sir.
appreciate
Hope
it.
that works out for you good.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much. Yep.
Have a good
You
rest.
too.